What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of JoesTech. Today we're going to be taking a look at a new Corsair keyboard, which is the K70 RGB Mk.2. This is a newer variant of a keyboard that came out, like, I want to say 3-4 years ago. And you know, the main focus of this newly designed keyboard is obviously to last a lot longer and to be a little bit more durable, and they've added quite a bit of functionality. So why don't we go ahead and take a look and see what you get with the keyboard. Inside the box, you'll find a keycap removal tool. You'll find extra FPS and MOBA keycaps, which have that nice texturized cap, and then a full-length wrist rest for those of you guys who would rather use your keyboard with a wrist rest. Of course, it also included like a quick start guide and the warranty card as well. The first thing you'll notice about the K70 Mk.2 is the brushed anodized aluminum frame that they designed this keyboard around, and it's supposed to provide a lighter feel, obviously with still great durability. As far as connectivity goes, the K70 Mk.2 requires 2 USB connections. In that cable, you can see they also did a nice sleeving, and it just kind of gives it a nicer aesthetic look. On the rear side of the keyboard, where that wire goes in, you can also see they've added an input. If you guys needed to plug in your mouse or another USB adapter, you can do that on the back side of the keyboard. If you guys are deciding to use a wired mouse, which I think a lot of people do, I like that they've also added this option for cable routing on the back side of the keyboard, which allows you to kind of route the wire without having to wrap it around the legs of the keyboard or elevating the keyboard to kind of make things work. It's just kind of a nice, neat implementation that we don't see on every keyboard. Since we're already looking at the rear side of the keyboard, also notice they've added these big rubber grips, and that's going to kind of help you from sliding your keyboard around. And they've also, of course, included flip out legs if you guys wanted to elevate the angle of the keyboard itself. Moving our way back to the front side of the keyboard, notice they have included multimedia keys at the top right of the keyboard. I really like this heavy duty aluminum dial that they've included, which is basically for your volume adjustments. It just kind of adds a nice aesthetic, has a heavy feel, and a nice smooth scroll. Moving to the left side of the keyboard, they've also included 3 keys for profile switching, 3 levels of brightness adjustment, and a Windows key lock, which obviously is if you guys are in a game and you want to lock down that Windows key so you don't accidentally exit out of your game at that key moment. Over the last couple of weeks, I did test with this keyboard to kind of see, what things I did and didn't like. As I mentioned, there was an included wrist rest, which basically clips over the front side of the keyboard and into 2 latches on the bottom side. And at first, I think I was kind of like unsure about how I like that, because it just kind of sits loosely on the keyboard. Even though it's clipped in place, it's not super secure. But after using it for a while, I didn't really notice any issues having it on. It never came loose when I moved the keyboard around. For me, honestly, I did like that it was a quick connect, because when I'm doing like productivity stuff, my primary job is actually, basically being on the PC all the time. And when I was using it for that, it was great. I didn't have a problem with the wrist rest. And then of course, when I wanted to do some gaming, I could take that off and I could kind of throw an angle on the keyboard and just have a little bit more comfortable and tighter of a, a feel on the keyboard. So I definitely like the fact that it's optional and easy to remove. Obviously, the most important part when shopping for a gaming keyboard is the switches themselves. This version of the K70 Mk.2 that we're looking at today has the Cherry MX brown switches, but if you go to Corsair's site, you can see they have a plethora of options, including the Cherry MX brown switches, of course, the silent switches, the blue switches, the speed switches, and finally the red switches as well. So they've given us definitely, several options to look at. In case you guys want to hear how this K70 sounds with the brown switches, I'll go ahead and throw in a little sample here. In addition to all the models I mentioned a quick second ago, Corsair has also come up with a K70 RGB Mk.2 SE edition keyboard, which basically is the same keyboard, but it has a nice stainless steel bezel and then white keycaps, which I gotta say is one slick, delicious looking keyboard, and I might have to check it out for myself at a later date. RGB obviously isn't anything new, but Corsair seems to consistently do it right, and it's worth mentioning, of course, that the K70 also has individually lit keycaps, which is going to be helpful when you want to do like custom keyboard layouts, or if you just really want a smooth RGB effect. You're probably going to get one of the better experiences out there with this line of keyboards. In addition, when talking about the RGB settings, one of the nice things about the K70 Mk.2 is it does still have that built-in memory. I think it's about 8 megabytes, and that would allow up to 3 profiles stored on the keyboard. And then of course, if you want to like unplug the keyboard, take it with you, those effects are basically stored on the keyboard without needing that third-party application to make those changes. Of course, if you're going to be using this keyboard on your daily driver PC, you're going to have the Q application installed, which is really easy to use. It has a ton of functionality. You can go in there and make all the adjustments you need to on color or effects, or like I said, you can have multiple profiles. It's pretty easy to use, pretty customizable, and there's just a ton of options for you to check out in that application. I did use this keyboard for the last couple weeks, and I didn't seem to have any problems with the keyboard, with the communication between the keyboard and the software. For those of you guys who are running other third-party applications for controlling other RGB products, there was no issues communicating with some of my other RGB software and the Q software, so I know sometimes that's a question that comes up. I didn't run into any problems with that. The keyboard itself, the hardware is really durable. No issues on that front, so I would say overall this is a really well designed keyboard. I like that it has that added USB port on the top and the great cable management routing on the back side of the keyboard. For those of you guys interested in checking out the K70 RGB Mk.2, I'll go ahead and leave links in the description below as always. If you guys have any questions, feedback, concerns, I'm always happy to hear that stuff in the comments section, so please feel free to leave that stuff down there as well. Big thanks to Corsair for sending me a sample of this keyboard to share with you guys. It's always nice to kind of get my hands on something new that I can share and hopefully, provide some help for someone out there. So if you guys did enjoy the video, please don't forget to leave me a thumbs up on the way out. It's a big help. And of course, if you guys want to see more tech videos like this in the future, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Until next time, guys, this has been JoesTech. I'll see you in the next video.